Ukraine liberates a key village, but its advance is hampered by dense minefields.
The Spanish Football Federation have called on its president, Luis Rubiales, to resign immediately after kissing Jenny Hermoso at the World Cup final.
Austria is drenched by heavy rains and floods yet again as other parts of Europe are hit by extreme weather. Ukraine has confirmed it has fully completed its liberation of the key village, Robotynye, on the southern Zaporizhia front. The announcement marks the latest step in Kyiv's gradual advance aimed at splitting the Russian lines to defend the overland route to Crimea. But making progress in this area is slow, with troops having to clear dense minefields. Footage here reportedly shows Ukrainian forces detonating Russian mines. On the second battlefront towards Ukraine's northeast, locals are resisting calls to evacuate. In the village of Kupiansk, residents insist on staying in their homes despite a recent intensification of Russia operations in the area. Their reasons range from fearing poverty and loneliness if they leave to a blank refusal to abandon their homes. Meanwhile, President Zelensky has said that he hopes Ukraine will be able to hold elections next year if Kyiv's allies could help with the costs during wartime. Moscow's Ministry of Defense released images of its Marine Corps. Its forces reportedly downed 2 Ukrainian drones over Russian-annexed Crimea on Monday. Moscow says it has also detained a Russian citizen and former U.S. consulate employee for allegedly passing war information to Washington.
The Spanish Football's federational regional leaders have called on their president, Luis Rubiales, to resign immediately following a 5-hour meeting in Madrid. Rubiales has been criticized for kissing player Jenny Hermoso after her team won the Women's World Cup. He said the kiss was consensual. Hermoso said it wasn't. Spanish prosecutors have already opened a preliminary investigation into whether the incident amounts to a crime of sexual assault.
Exigimos la renovación de los órganos deportivos para que se acomoden a la realidad de nuestros tiempos, para que tengamos políticas igualitarias y feministas y, sobre todo, estamos trabajando para que nunca más volvamos a ver lo que vimos con Jenny Hermoso. Por tanto, todo el cariño a Jenny. Se acabó, es un se acabó colectivo y nuestro país es mejor que todo lo que hemos visto estos días.
Para apoyar a nuestras campeonas, apoyarlas por su hazaña futbolística, en primer lugar, y por su hazaña de enfrentarse a los abusos machistas.
Porque, bueno, esto que ha pasado con Jenny no simplemente es como un hecho aislado, es algo que vivimos en muchos deportes y las mujeres en la vida en general. Entonces, para mí el apoyo era muy importante.
Rubiales was suspended from office on Saturday by football's governing body, FIFA. He refuses to resign, condemning the criticism as a social witch hunt.
Solo 20 metri.
Toyota Motor has been forced to halt operations at 12 of its 14 factories in Japan due to a system failure. Production of Toyota and Lexus cars have been affected. The glitch leaves Japan's largest car maker unable to process orders for parts. The automaker is looking into the cause, but a cyber attack is thought unlikely. Investors started selling after the news broke, and the company's shares were down 0.8% at one point during early trading.
Prank calls, stone throwing at Japan's embassy and the country's schools in China. Those are just some of the acts that Japan is calling on China to prevent. The wave of what Tokyo has described as regrettable harassment comes after Japan started releasing treated water from its Fukushima nuclear power plant. China is just one of Japan's neighboring countries that have heavily criticized the move and has even banned seafood imports from the country. But despite the backlash, Japan insists that its decades-long wastewater release plan is safe.
France has banned the buy a dress from schools, saying it contravenes the country's strict policy to outlaw any conspicuous religious symbols in keeping with the French notion of a secular state. The decision announced by Education Minister Gabriel Attal has divided opinion.
Une abaya, c'est une robe pour la chaleur, point. C'est les gens qui veulent transformer ça en une habit religieuse. Mais ce n'est pas du tout une habit religieuse, vraiment. Par exemple, au pays, moi je portais même pas d'abaya, c'est ici, genre quand c'est l'été et qu'il fait chaud, j'en porte, c'est tout.
There are those who reject the decision, those who approve of it, and those who think it is totally artificial.
Puisque l'abaya, là, les Français ne l'interdisent pas dans la rue, donc c'est la liberté. Et bon, à l'école, il y a des endroits peut-être où il faut l'interdire. Ben moi je suis pour, voilà.
Je suppose qu'il y a des sujets beaucoup plus importants et pertinents à traiter en ce moment, qui sont la détresse des hôpitaux, qu'ils soient psy ou autres, l'école, la vie quotidienne pour les Français. Voilà, il y a beaucoup de choses qui ne vont pas.
According to the government, violations of secularism in schools increased by 120% in the last 2 years. Some say their use has gained ground thanks mainly to social networks.
An 11-meter hand-carved totem pole, which was taken from a Canadian First Nation community nearly a century ago, has been blessed in a spiritual ceremony ahead of its return to its place of origin. The House of Nisga'a pole was put on display in a museum in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1929. Nisga'a Nation representatives pleaded for the pole's return after it was taken without consent before being sold to the museum by a Canadian anthropologist. And it's now going home. A live parasitic roundworm has been pulled out of a woman's brain in Australia while it was still wriggling. The stomach-churning discovery was the first time a worm of this type has been discovered in any mammal, including humans, as they are usually found in the brains of snakes.
If you think of the human brain, which is, quite big but not huge, and this worm was 8 centimeters long. And it was alive and wriggling when our poor but very skilled neurosurgeon took it out with some forceps.
One theory is that the woman was infected after foraging for edible shrubs near her house. The 64-year-old is being observed by doctors in case the worm had left behind eggs, potentially causing further trouble.
At home in Berlin, Simon Valfish is a professional British opera singer who took the decision to relocate to Germany with his family to overcome what he sees as the barriers to musicians brought about by Brexit.
What used to be possible, get the call on the Friday, turn up on the Monday, start working, in another EU country is now simply not possible. And that is infuriating and totally pointless.
For British musicians, the cost of arranging visas, work permits and additional travel expenses has surged. Schengen visa limitations also restrict professionals to just 90 days in a 180-day period within the EU. The UK-EU trade agreement also lacks provisions for short-term travel for freelance creative professionals.
What we've done is shot ourselves in the foot completely.
Simon, who continues to perform across Europe, sees himself as one of the lucky ones, able to take advantage of his grandmother's German heritage. Anita Lasker-Wallfisch, a German-born Jewish Auschwitz survivor, understands and supports her grandson's decision to take up German citizenship.
He is a real European. And of course these stupid Brexit people didn't give a thought for anything. As far as we are concerned, this is a total practical decision. German, English, European.
Here at the Royal Albert Hall, the impact of Brexit on the music industry is reverberating. A recent survey by the Independent Society of Musicians found UK musicians are grappling with dwindling opportunities within the EU. Half of them report a decline in European-based opportunities since Brexit, and a quarter are left with no engagement at all inside the European Union.
Sean Patel was too young to vote in the Brexit referendum. A baritone singer recently recruited to work at a Danish opera house, only for the opportunity to fall apart due to visa complications.
They were completely honest. They said, because of Brexit, because of my situation as a British citizen, it's going to be more difficult for me to be able to come over. I was their first choice, but unfortunately just couldn't get it in time.
Sean is now going through the process of applying for an EU passport through his Irish heritage. But British musicians who don't have that option are now calling for a bespoke visa waiver agreement with the EU to be allowed to continue to play on in Europe. Luke Hanrahan, Euronews, London.